Beyond the Monster High core dolls you might find on the shelves in toy aisles lies a fascinating and often overlooked world of doll variants and eras. From subtle changes in makeup to entirely different outfits, these variations offer collectors a wide spectrum of options. When a doll's appearance is changed due to various factors, resulting in two or more versions of the given doll, we speak of variants. There are multiple different reasons for variants to occur. Now, I want to get into all of the ones I know about. Since this is a very complex video, please show it some love and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any other content from me. Just like many mass-produced toys, Monster High dolls were manufactured in various locations around the globe, primarily in China and Indonesia. While the overall design remained consistent, subtle differences often emerged depending on the factory producing them. These differences, while often minor, can be significant for collectors, me included. I also like to collect doll variants since they are interesting to learn more about. It's somehow part of the Monster High doll history, and for a future museum I have to have at least the most important ones in my collection. Back to the variants. The first type is the variant that resulted from different countries of manufacture. This type of variant is probably the most known of among collectors, and they are the easiest to identify. Identifying these variants can be easily done by looking at the back of the doll's body. Most of the time, the doll's body will have a stamp of the production country on its back, and that can help collectors pinpoint the origin of their dolls. Let me show you some of such variants I own. Most of the variants have different face-ups. Some even have slightly different looking head sculpts. Depending on the character, such variations occur more often than in others. First up, let's talk about Signature Hold Hide. Signature Hold Hide was first released in 2010, and the first version was manufactured in Indonesia. He was later released a second time, and his second release was made in China, resulting in a new version of him. As a result, he has a slightly different face than when he was first released, with blue-colored lips and a crisper facial tattoo. Next up, we'll take a look at Signature Golia Yelps. Her Indonesian doll has a larger head and her China version has a smaller one. So that you don't get confused, I keep my Indonesian Signature Golia doll in one of her deluxe fashions. It is also noticeable that the lips and eyes of the Indonesian variant are larger. This is one of the more common features with this variant type. Dolls produced in China usually have smaller, more narrow eyes, while Indonesian releases have larger, bug-like eyes. Another variant I want to talk about is CA Cupid. She only had 2 releases in the Monster High line before her character transferred to Ever After High. Her releases were essentially identical, except that one was made in China, was sold as a signature doll and came with a diary, and the other was made in Indonesia and was sold as part of the Sweet 1600 line without a diary. Cupid's Indonesian release has larger eyes and her hair was styled a bit more. The ombre or fading on her legs had a big difference as well. It started at different points of the leg and was colored differently as well. Moving on with Signature Abby Abominable, whose variant is quite known about. It's probably one of the most striking examples of how different yet similar doll variants can be. As you can see, Abby has a more pronounced jaw on her Indonesian release and the eyes are different in shape and size again. Also, the China releases are often discolored and yellowed. Even the new pre-production dolls from last year have striking differences to their 2021 released counterparts, all because they had different production countries. There are differences in packaging, but also in their designs and hair quality. Some specific differences are, for instance, that the 2024 released dolls have smaller eyes and choppier hair compared to their 2021 Indonesian releases. Now, the quality of the plastic and joint construction can sometimes differ between production locations, leading to variations in durability and posability. In this case, the 2024 pre-production dolls have stiffer articulation than the previously released ones and are therefore harder to pose. Continuing with another very popular variant among collectors, the elastic variant. Anyone who collects Monster High knows that the first Monster High dolls had elastics between their legs. The elastics varied in color depending on the batch of release. First there were gold, then there were black, and lastly there were white elastics. Since the dolls belonged to different batches, there were also differences in the screening. So if you don't have the time to check which elastics the dolls have between their legs, you can also identify the color by looking at their faces and classify the dolls. Here are the dolls I own and their differences. Dolls with gold elastics between their legs usually have a fish-like face. This type of face is extremely popular among collectors. It is expressive and gives the doll a sense of elegance. When comparing the faces of dolls with gold elastics between their legs to others, various differences become noticeable. Dolls with differently colored elastics between their legs usually have smaller, more defined eyes. With Laguna, it's also noticeable that the lip shape and color are different. Also, my dolls aren't in the best condition anymore, therefore some hairstyles may look different than others. So please keep that in mind. With the dawn of the dance Claudine, it's very noticeable that her hairstyle is cut a bit shorter than the other one. I feel like you can clearly see a difference here. Shining light on another type of variant. Monster High's fashion was a significant part of its appeal, and occasionally the same doll would have variations in clothing or accessories. These changes could be intentional, representing updates during production, or unintentional due to material availability or factory defects. Fabric textures, patterns, and even colors could change for the same doll. I recently discovered that the dress of the Power Ghouls Frankie, which at first had a woven design, already had a printed pattern in the second wave of its release. The skull on one dress of the Power Ghouls Frankie is wider and slightly distorted, while the other one retains its original shape. Another example for a design change would be Operetta Picture Day. Her design was only slightly changed, with her mask being the only thing. The first release had a spiderweb shaped mask, whereas the second release came with a heart-shaped one. We've never seen the spiderweb shaped mask ever again, which makes this variant even more special. Continuing with Freak de Chic Honey Swamp, who's always unique. This is mainly due to the fabric of her dress. The pattern on her dress is always different, creating multiple different versions. I have two Honey Swamp dolls that are pretty different in their dress patterns. We even have G3 fashion variants. An example of this would be the signature Claudine Wolf, whose sweater changed from a black one with a purple moon pattern to a black one with a tiger stripe pattern. The face of the variant looks also slightly different and has a more mature appearance. Before moving on and presenting another type of variant to you, I still have to mention one more noticeable fashion variant. This fashion variant arose mainly because there were fashion packs released and budget dolls released wearing the same fashion, just budged out. Most of the times, the budget doll releases wore the same fashion with less details. A doll line that is an example for the mentioned type is the Killer Style line with their Day at the Mall fashion counterparts. The Killer Style line was the budged out version of the Day at the Mall fashions, which is why the dolls feature significantly fewer colorful details. Earrings and shoes remain solid colors. Small accessories like hair clips and belts have also been removed. Keeping an eye on these fashion differences can lead to the discovery of unique and sought after variants. I would recommend everyone to really check on their dolls and take a few closer looks at them. No production process is perfect, and toy manufacturing is no exception. Monster High dolls are not immune to factory errors, which can range from minor cosmetic flaws to truly bizarre mishaps. These errors, while sometimes frustrating to find, often make a doll incredibly rare and valuable to collectors. Some examples for error variants are the G3 dolls with the wrong face screenings or accessories, Human Hand Claudine, the first batches of Swim Class Venus, or even the Clawed Hand Slow-Mo doll. These errors, while imperfections, add a layer of intrigue and individuality to the dolls, making them highly prized by collectors who appreciate the uniqueness of these factory mistakes. Since I only have a few of these errors, I can only really talk about the ones I have, which are the Swim Class Venus, the Human Hand Claudine, and a G3 Deuce Gorgon, who comes with an eye coffin that has Laguna's phone screen printed onto it instead of his own one. The first batches of the Swim Class Venus were released with the same screening as her signature doll. Later, the screening was updated to the intended makeup look, which was also portrayed on the box art. For the Human Hand Claudine, I can't say for sure how these occurred. It probably also had something to do with the first and second batches. Of course, the variants with the human hands are very popular and sought after by collectors. it's time for me to talk about release variants now. With release variants, I mean American and international release dolls. There are two dolls I would like to talk about in particular: Haunted Spectra and Dragon Queen RuPaul. The Spectra doll differs significantly in her face screening. The eyes of the American version are significantly smaller. The international version also has bolder eye makeup. With RuPaul, the difference isn't visible in her face but in her clothing. Microplastics have been banned in Europe, which is why they are replaced in doll designs. Glitter foil is usually used instead, and that's also the case with this doll. Instead of black glitter vines, the international version has shimmering ones. Shifting the focus onto a different variant type, which is the hair variant. This variant appears more often nowadays, but even in the past there were already some of such kind. Some variants I own are Signature Rebecca Steam from the first generation and Signature Cleo Denial from the third generation. This variant type is one of the harder ones to identify because you have to know the differences between doll hair fibers. Especially nowadays, Mattel likes to release a lot of hair variants for the third generation dolls. They do it mainly for the dolls that were first released with polypropylene as a hair fiber, which got turned into saran afterwards. But let's take a look at my dolls. For Rebecca, there was one with saran hair and one with Kanekalon hair. Personally, I can easily identify which one is which, since Kanekalon is very dry to the touch. Also, saran is very heavy and the other one is light. For Cleo, it's just like every other Generation 3 doll release, meaning her first doll had polypropylene hair which got turned into saran. The saran hair lays much flatter on her head than poly does. Finally, I would like to address the variants that you suggested under my most recent community post. Maeve Smoot, for example, talked about a Spectra variant that differs mainly in the color of its earrings. I am familiar with this variant too, but the reproduction Spectra also had black earrings. In this case, that means that there may be some Spectra dolls out there that are perhaps not this specific variant at all, but have been equipped with the accessories of the reproduction. The way you can identify this variant, however, is that the doll's belt is very different from the regular belt of Spectra most of us are familiar with. The belt is less detailed and has no details above the loops. So if the doll only has black earrings but the same belt that can be found on other Spectra dolls, then something might be wrong. Or maybe there are simply several variants of this Spectra doll. Who knows? Carrie Hudson also wanted me to discuss the packaging of the Cree productions and how there are differences. I talked about the Cree productions earlier, but didn't really go into the differences in terms of packaging. In general, the packaging differs in terms of text. In fact, the earliest Cree productions had more information in various languages on the box. The newer Cree productions have fewer translations. Also, some of the symbols are different here and there, and the text is placed differently as well. Last but not least, I would like to include Kevin Arft's comment. This person listed a lot of factors that could lead to variance. One criterion I would also like to talk about again is that of the playsets and buildings, because Monster High also had such variants. One doll variant that comes from a playset and that I personally own is the Dinah Draculaura. This Draculaura differs mainly in the color of her shoes. Another playset that shows a difference is, for example, the Powder Room playset. Here there was one playset that was sold with and one that was sold without a doll. Actually, there weren't that many differences apart from the reflection in the mirror. That was different in the playset without the doll than in the playset with the doll. There are so many other playsets I could list and talk about, but I think you get the idea of this variant type. The world of Monster High variants is pretty complex. Hunting for these variants can be a rewarding experience, offering a deeper connection to the franchise and a chance to own a truly unique piece of Monster High history. Whether it's a face screening difference or a factory error, these variants help to tell the untold stories behind the dolls we know and love. So keep your research sharp and maybe you'll discover the next sought after variant. A big thank you goes out to my subscribers that purchased a membership. Shout out to Jaylin, Snow002W and Coolings, you are truly amazing. If you want to support me in a new way, feel free to check out the membership levels I offer here on YouTube. And with that, that's it with the video. Bye!